Hey, folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. This podcast is being brought to you by On Target Claims, where their motto is on target from setback to settlement. Now, listen, a little background. I've worked with these guys on the job, on the street for over 25 years, man, and they have always done the right thing and have always had my back. Now, in this second chapter, let them have your back. Right? You wouldn't go to court without an attorney. Why would you go up against an insurance company without representation, right? They represent you, the policyholder, when you go up against an insurance company submitting a claim. And I can tell you this, right? From beginning to end, they're going to be with you during the entire process. They're going to properly document that claim with the latest technology. And then when it comes time to getting things fixed, they've got a complete stable of vendors that are certified that are going to get it done right the first time. They also offer a pre-loss planning and policy review. So you know exactly what you're covered for, right? Make sure that you're adequately covered. The time to find out that you're not isn't after that horrific event. Okay. So give my friends a call at On Target Claims, 561-208-1775, or go to their website, ontargetclaims.com. They cover the entire state of Florida, offices in Fort Lauderdale and Tampa, and tell them John sent you. And now let's get to the episode. Very good. Hey, folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Sitting down with Hi Nguyen, a former Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, and he has developed an amazing leadership program helping frontline supervisors lead teams. I'm going to say in challenging times, man, because leadership's not getting any easier. It's not getting easier for our bosses, and it's certainly not getting any easier for our frontline supervisors. So he has developed a program specifically aimed at giving them the skill sets that they need to be effective. And so we're sitting down with he today, and we're going to just jump into it, man. We've been talking already a little bit this morning, brother.
Right.
It's great to see you, man.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, John. Thanks so much. This is exciting.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. It's so the listener doesn't know this, but we've been going back and forth for a little bit, sharing ideas and concepts and trying to figure out how we kind of bring some resuscitate leadership and come up with some ideas that maybe aren't as traditional, what you would consider traditional type leadership skill set building, right? Leadership really, I mean, what's your take on this? He has leadership, I mean, the foundation, the principles haven't changed since the beginning of time, right?
100%. I couldn't agree more. It's so funny you bring that up. I was actually having a conversation about this recently, and it's so true. I mean, we are continuously trying to reinvent the wheel when at the end of the day, we've been leading people for whatever 15,000 years or something.
Right.
Like, how do you think they built the pyramids and stuff? Like, they were leading teams, right?
Sure. Sure. I also think that could have been an aliens, bro. So, I mean,
Yeah, but
maybe
let's
a team of
agree that the
aliens.
aliens had leadership skills.
I, point taken, man. Point
Yeah,
taken. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, and so I think we end up getting away from just the basic principles. Listen, I like to oversimplify, man.
Yep.
That's how my brain works best, man. If it's simple, I can grasp the concept, and then I can share the concept if it's simple. And I in its most simplest form, I say you need to care more about your people than you do yourself.
Yep.
And I just,
Absolutely.
but there's a whole hell of a lot more that goes into
Yep. Yeah. And
the
I
actual
think that,
application, right?
yeah, I think that today, more than ever, with all the resources that we have, right?
Yeah.
And the the Jocko Willinks and the Andrew Hubermans of the world. There's just so many resources, and I think that we're realizing that today there's a lot of psychology behind leadership, right? There's a lot of tips and tricks you can use that are easy, that you can engage in conversation with a team, or more specifically, I think that a lot of our folks today, especially this new generation of officers, they have a lot more difficulty handling friction,
Mm,
handling a difficult employee, somebody that talks back to you, somebody that's problematic on your team. Um, there's ways now. There's actual techniques that you can use to just have a conversation with that person,
right.
and just bring bring the temperature down a little bit and solve the problem. Because
That's
you and I are from the generation of cops that was just like, hey, if the sergeant says this, you shut up and you do it,
yeah.
right? But that's over. That entire generation is retired now.
Right. I remember as a frontline supervisor, I had two guys on my squad that they didn't care for each other, and it started manifesting itself into them not backing up each other. It went beyond disagreement, right? It started becoming a safety issue. So I had this idea in my head, we're going to take it in the back lot. We're going to duke it out. And I thought that they would, when we got back there, they would see the ridiculousness of them with this, situation that's developed, this dislike. They went after each other. Um, it was a shit show, bro. It was. I had to. I sent both of them home. Like to cool off. I covered a zone for the rest of the night. I mean, it did not turn out the way I thought. It would have been better to have some skill sets to have approached that situation differently.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And I don't know about your experience, but based on the years I spent as a police officer, I can say that most of the training, I want to say almost all of the training regarding leadership and leading groups and all that jazz, that was always pretty much upper management.
Mm,
Like the
yeah,
frontline guys, they weren't getting training for that. They were getting very little stuff. They maybe would have a little seminar here and there, that type of
right.
thing, but it wasn't a continuous training.
No,
There weren't real tools. And, if we just think back to our career in uniform, you spend years and years on the road. How many bad bosses did you have?
right.
So many.
Yeah, you were hoping that you actually took something away from those bad bosses. Like, all right, I'm definitely not going to do that. But you did need somebody to show you the right way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's why today I'm just so pumped about helping the frontline guys, because I just feel there's this huge gap in, especially today, there's this huge gap
no,
in helping these frontline guys getting the tools. I'm saying guys, I mean guys and gals
no. You
here.
could say, guys, we understand. Yeah, I know. It can be crazy if we go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. But helping these folks uh, is so important to me, because they're the leaders of the future, right?
Right.
They're going to be the upper management in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, and I think we need to train them now, because our industry is going through a massive change. It's going through a massive crisis, actually, and part of that is really getting your people well trained, understanding how to manage people, how to motivate people in the situations that we are right now, where it is, very little public support, which turns into very low funding,
Right.
and so it's budget cuts and so on and so forth. So it's a very difficult work environment. So how do you lead in an environment like that?
and there's certainly, man, there is a void that needs to be filled. I remember what little training I got as a frontline supervisor revolved around forms and protocols. Like, if this is the scene, call this person. Not anything to do with actual how to lead teams. I think that they were just hoping that you develop those skills by the time you got promoted. And that wasn't always the case.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I can tell you, the very first course I took um, back in the day to become an FTO
Okay.
was it was an entire course, not on leading, not on coaching, mentoring, nothing. The course to become an FTO was how to fill out the forms
Right.
to fire somebody. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
essentially, here's how you document poor performance, here's how you document poor attitude, blah 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 blah,
Not
and
how you
here's
coach,
the process
mentor.
to get them fired. I was like, this is crazy.
Not no training in actually the role that you're supposed to be conducting, which is coaching, mentoring, training, getting them to be the absolute best that they can be, and passing on all that information for their time that they're with you. We didn't train you how to do that.
It,
Oh my
it
God.
yeah, and today, I am leading a team of, 50, 60 people right now. And um, this new generation coming online of eager team leaders, they're hungry. They want
Oh,
to learn, they're chomping at the bit, but I can see them. There's kind of this gap. They're like, well, I don't know how to do it, and
right.
they can get discouraged pretty quickly. And so I spend a lot of time with them, just coaching them through the process of, okay, well, if you have a problematic employee, here's what you do,
Right.
and so on, and just step by step by step, and practically holding their hand through the process. But then they grow, right? They get to this next level where they're like, okay, now they have the confidence, if they
Sure.
have a problematic employee, for example, to just say, okay, let's have a sit down, let's handle this situation. Because currently, a lot of them uh, have a confidence problem. And I actually did a survey with a whole bunch of followers that I have. And the number one thing that young team leaders have, like the number one issue that they're having, is a confidence problem. Like
Right.
they're either not confident in handling a difficult situation with their team. Let's say the whole team has a problem. They're just not confident standing up to the team or standing
Sure.
up to a problem employee. And same thing with their boss. They're not confident to walk up to their boss and say, hey, boss, you know,
Yeah.
I'm having a problem with ABC. I need support this way, blah, blah, blah. Right. And they're just like, no, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to bother my boss, or my boss is not going to help me, or whatever.
Yeah. It's amazing the ripple effect that can occur when we don't have strong leaders doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is mentoring the generation behind them, right? Because
Yep.
that's what, in theory, right, I'm supposed to be preparing a subordinate to take my place. and
Yeah.
and and, and we've got that can be really problematic if I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
No, that's exactly right. And, you know, I'll tell you a story from back when I was a patrol officer.
Yes.
So we get called to a domestic. So we show up at this house, and it's a wife and husband arguing, and the husband is this huge construction dude, and he is in this. He's sitting in this old couch. The couch that you sit in and you kind of sink
It
into the
completely
bottom of the couch.
surrounds you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're like, okay, buddy, you got to go, blah blah blah. You're under arrest for assault or whatever. And he's like, no, 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 f off. I'm
Yeah.
not going with you guys.
Oh
And
man.
so I'm I'm the new guy. I've got whatever 6 months under my belt, and I've got my corporal with me who's got 20 some years on the road. And I I don't even talk. I don't even say anything. I just jump on top of this guy, and I'm wrestling with this guy. Like, try to get a 250-pound guy out of a couch.
Yeah,
Like, it was ridiculous. So,
not
anyways,
easy.
we're wrestling with this guy. We managed to arrest him, and then we put him in the car, and we're all sweaty, and my corporal just looks at me and he goes, you really need to learn how to walk him into the cuffs. And I just went, what are you talking about? He says, you can talk to them, and and he proceeded over the following years to really show me that it's it doesn't need to be a fight every time,
A little
even though you think
little
it's going to be a
teachable
good
moment
time.
there, right? Little teachable moment there.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have a lot of experience teaching each other how to arrest people, how to investigate this, how to interrogate a suspect.
Right.
But I think everybody in our industry will recognize we have a lot of problems internally. Like,
Um,
we have a lot of problems with toxicity within our teams and so on and so forth. And this is where we need to really support our people in how do you manage that? You know, the expression, you get what you tolerate.
right. No
And a
doubt.
lot of people are just, they're blaming. They're like, oh, I can't believe my frontline officers are doing this and blah blah blah. And you're like, well, I'm often, when I'm coaching clients, I'm like, hey man, you get what you tolerate.
Right.
So
Right.
what did you let slip here?
It's there's so many levels, right, that need to be addressed. But speaking to that, listen, if anybody's been on the job for more than a year, maybe even less, they realize that most of their problems are going to come from within the four walls of that building. That the public typically doesn't generate any anxiety or heartache for us. It's all from within, and it usually starts with poor leadership because somebody's not addressing a situation. It's allowed to fester or go unaddressed, or just like you said, um, you get the culture that you tolerate. If you don't want uh, a certain behavior to be to be prevalent, then remove it. Make it unacceptable to conduct yourself in that fashion. And it's kind of a little bleed over to what I do is when we talk about trying to change the culture. You get the culture that you accept. If I'm talking
Yep.
negatively about he and you hear me talking negatively and nobody checks me on that, then I guess it's okay to talk shit about each other behind each other's back. That
Yep.
that becomes okay. And then
Yep.
if that's okay, well, what else are we allowing? What other unacceptable behavior are we allowing? And so in that regard, as much as I think, obviously our top commands they set an example. I like to, if at all possible, remove them from your equation. Like
Oh,
you need to
100%.
you need to be worried about how you. I don't care what anybody else is doing. What do you accept? What are your values? What's your leadership take on discipline? Because I think an easy out he is, well, I'm not gonna address that. That's above my pay grade. Well, you know, everyone's a leader,
Yep.
and
Yep. 100%.
everybody
And
plays a part of that solution.
yeah, 100%. And one of the things that we're seeing a lot is, as soon as somebody feels they can't handle something, they just push it up to the next level.
Mm,
They're like, "Oh, I'll get my boss to handle this." Like,
yeah,
I can't handle this. This is above my pay grade. Poof, poof, punt it up. And then if that next leader, let's say the staff sergeant,
yeah,
is is a weak leader as well, he's going to punt it up too,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And it's insanity, and we
I
need
would
to stop that.
I would say to my guys, don't bring me a problem without a solution attached to it. What have you done? You're not dumping shit on my desk. You've identified a problem. What do you think is a good solution to that problem? And then
Yep.
we'll figure it out together.
Yep.
But I think that just passing the buck, man, it's not gonna cut it.
No,
Not gonna cut
exactly.
it.
And I think, one of the things I try to do with my team as much as I can is I try to coach as much as I can. And coaching is asking questions,
Yeah, man.
right? It's
Yeah, man.
not just handing over a solution,
No.
right? And so you want to force your employee to kind of to stop coming to you for the answer, but to find the answer themselves. And
Right.
so, one of the questions I really like to ask them is, they, let's say they come up, they're like, oh, I'm having a problem with Joe. Joe is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And my first question is going to be, okay, blue sky scenario. All right. You have a magic wand and you can just go blink.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate outcome? What's the magical outcome that you would dream of? No limits. And then they say, oh, well, Joe would turn around and blah, 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 and do this or whatever. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So where are you now? And this blue sky scenario, what's the gap here?
Hmm.
Tell me how you can close that gap.
Right.
And now they're thinking, they're like, oh, well, all right, yeah, well, I guess I could
Yeah.
do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I
okay,
could do.
yeah,
What's the role I play,
yep,
right? Because I have control over me.
yep,
I don't have control over Joe. All right, man. That's a perfect way to frame it.
yep,
It's an empowering way to frame
exactly.
addressing
And
a
so
problem.
so just having these powerful questions,
Yeah.
and you push your people to think, like, you really want to encourage them to come up with their own answer.
Sure.
Or else what you're doing is you're conditioning your crew to come up to you and
Yeah.
solve it for them, right?
Right.
Hey, boss, I couldn't solve this. You solve it.
Right.
It's no, no, no,
That's
no.
that's
I
not how we grow.
I
Yeah.
can guide you
Sure.
in how to solve it, but I'm not going to solve it for you,
No.
right?
I
Yeah,
love that. And you know what? It may take a little longer, right? But the results will be lasting.
well, in the short term,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
takes
Yeah.
longer.
Oh
In
yeah.
the
Yeah.
long term, it takes a shorter time because
Of
now
course.
they don't come to see you anymore.
Right. That
Yep.
problem is actually resolved.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
great.
So yeah, no,
What are
that's
some of the
that's
problems you're seeing, when other than, the maybe the lack of confidence and, the not knowing, right? Um,
yep.
I think, you talk about Gen Zers and all, there are people, I think, unfortunately, because let me rephrase this question. What role do you see, um, recruitment and retention having a negative impact on our frontline leadership? Because I think a lot of guys are getting promoted well beyond the point that they're ready for that next. Well, we're throwing them into assignments because we're just plugging bodies into vacancies.
Yep.
Um, what kind of challenges has that been presenting you?
Um, well, what I'm seeing, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, and your audience is living this. I think one of the big impacts of most police forces, what they're doing is this exactly what you're talking about, right? It's just plug in holes, just plugging holes. So,
Right.
oh, we're missing two people in fraud section. Okay, we'll just grab two in patrol, throw them in fraud section or whatever, and it's just The one thing that I feel is a major impact is how it completely discourages your high performers,
Mm,
because there's no meritocracy, right? You don't deserve to get promoted. It's just like there was this urgency to, oh, we're building this task force, or we need a team to handle this, or whatever. Just grab Joe and Julie and go. And there's
yeah,
no like, so the guy that's worked his butt off
yeah,
to get into whatever, to drug section, and he doesn't get to drug section because some other Joe Blow gets promoted into the spot or whatever. It completely discourages
mm,
the people that are hardworking, that are go-getters, that are self-starters, because we have so many of those in our industry, right?
sure.
Because we're all AAA personalities, and a lot of people will actually go out on their own, get their own training, read books, follow podcasts, whatever. And when things like that happen, it creates a massive motivation issue.
Yeah. What
Um,
the, there was a saying, and I'm gonna butcher it, but like the best way to ruin like a motivated, productive employee is to not address,
yep.
the employee that does nothing. Or
Yep.
there's some
Yeah,
snazzy
no, I
saying,
know
man.
exactly what you're talking
There's
about.
some
I couldn't agree more, right?
right.
The worst thing you could do to a motivated employee is
Yeah.
to not address bullshit.
Right.
Essentially, that's
Sure.
that
Yeah,
that's
man.
that's how that's how what it boils down to.
Right.
And there's a rule in leadership that it comes from uh, I can't remember the name of the author now. Anyways, is it, John Maxwell. So this guy talks about this rule, which most people ignore. This rule is it's called the rule of the lid. So let's say, for example, you rate yourself 1 to 10 in your leadership skill. Let's say, for example, you rate yourself as a 6
Yeah.
out of 10, right? 10 being you're the god of leadership,
Sure.
and 1, you've never led
Right.
yourself to the bathroom. So um, let's say you're a 6. Naturally, and that's human psychology, anybody who's a 4 or a 3 or a 5 will naturally follow you. No problem. Because as humans, we're kind of animals, and we kind of all gauge ourselves, and we're like, yeah, John's a better leader than
In
I
a
am.
group, that dynamic picks up pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll follow John, right?
Sure.
But let's say, for example, you're a 6, and you get thrown into a leadership spot where there's a couple of 7s on your team.
Hmm.
You've got a problem.
Yeah.
You've got a problem because these 7s, regardless if they've got good attitude or whatever, psychologically, they're better leaders than you are, and they're just not going to follow you.
Hmm.
They won't follow you because of that law of the lid. So that means that as a leader, you need to recognize where you're at.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
I'm about a 6, and
Right.
then you can evaluate your team members and just go, holy crap, I've got a 7 and an 8 on my team.
Right.
So that means I got to get myself to a 9.
Right.
I got to get myself way up there to make sure that these people follow me. And this is what we see continuously on police teams and security teams and all sorts of teams. Is somebody gets promoted, and they've got great attitude or whatever,
Right.
but their leadership skill isn't that developed, and maybe they're a 6,
Right.
but they're thrown in a pit with a bunch of 6s and 7s.
Right.
It's going to be very hard for that person to lead that crew. And
Right.
so you've got weak upper management. Sometimes you have weak command. You'll have commanders that'll be 4s and 5s,
Right.
and you have a whole agency of 7 and 8s under them,
Right.
and it's chaos because
Right.
they can't lead, right? And so what's really important is to start with the front line. You start with the front line and you start making these guys 5s and 6s and 7s on the front line, so
Right.
that as they bump up to the next level, they can go to a 7, an
Sure.
8, a 9, and eventually 10s, right? But it's so important that we train them from the start.
I I I love that perspective. This is what I think there might be an not an alternate route there, but when I found myself, um, I was a sergeant for 20 years. And so that worked in my favor because I had a track record. My failures were very public, and so were my successes, right? So there was some standing there. And if was in a room or a situation where I knew that there was some folks in that room that were better leaders than me, I see as a leader, I am ultimately I'm responsible. But what I would do is I would take those 7 and 8s and I would make them project team leaders of, you know, I, you know, this is what I think, I would get them and I would task them with their area of expertise. Um, and I would have the conversation. You are the subject matter expert in this, Joe. I want you to run with this and keep me updated. And so there didn't become well, I'm not following John. John's given me an opportunity to do what I do best. And he's not micromanaging me and he's showing me respect by letting me do what I know how to do best. And so I found that you almost your standing in your stock actually ends up going up with that individual because you had the confidence to know that you don't need to know everything.
Yep.
And if I love being on a team of people that are smarter than me and have better skills than me because ultimately um they're going to be part of the success of the mission, right? I think
100%.
what happens is the weaker leader um on scale sees them as a threat, and so they give him a shit assignment, and so
Exactly.
you end up creating a nightmare of a squad because you're not acknowledging, you know, hey, be the first to say, hey, I don't know everything, right? But I want to grow and I want to learn, and
Yep.
I need you to help me.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
it's a-
100%.
that's the dynamic that where everybody wins.
Yeah.
But
100%.
that confidence plays a you got to know you need to be confident in your abilities and you need to be okay with the fact that there's always going to be somebody better than you at something.
Yes. And you got, I think that the first step, like you said, is to acknowledge the fact that somebody is stronger in a specific area than you are,
Sure.
and then have that humility to ask for help from that person to say, hey, you know what? You're going to be in charge of this
Right.
because you're by far the best player on this thing, right?
Right.
And and the other component, I think, is to have that courage to just say, hey, can I learn this from you?
Right.
And that, I think, automatically brings you up a notch. You
It
know,
makes them an ally.
you make them an ally, but let's say you were a 5 in your
Yeah.
leadership, just doing that brings you to a 6. Like,
Absolutely.
because you're immediately making allies.
Mhm.
And instead of sabotaging somebody or, just
Right.
pushing somebody in a corner because you feel intimidated, on the contrary,
Right.
recognize that they're strong and you can learn from them. And you can even ask them, look, I don't know how to, I don't know, interrogate a suspect as well
Right.
as you do.
Mm.
Can I attend a couple of your interrogations? I want to see how you do this, and so on and so forth. And maybe have them evaluate you,
Yeah.
right? Have that humility to just say, hey, what are your thoughts on, we had this incident. That's how I managed it. That's what was going through my head. What are your thoughts? Like,
Right.
what's your feedback on how I did? And grow from that, and so on and so forth. And I think this is a key element in our industry right now.
Right. Confidence and humility
Yep.
will get you a long way.
Yep.
I would have colonels come up to me on a scene. Hey, this is all you, man. This is all you. Keep me updated. What's the plan? How do you want to move forward?
Yep.
Right. Well, because maybe it was when I was working an apprehension dog, and it was a horrible scene. Maybe it was an assault upon one of our deputies or something like that,
Hmm.
and big command post and all that. The colonel, he's not telling me how to deploy my dog or what to do. He shouldn't
Yep.
be. But hey, tell me what you need from me. What other resources do you need me to get you to do your job effectively?
100%.
Oh, thanks, boss. Yeah, I need these teams. I need the aviation unit, and I'm going to need a marine unit because we got to go, across where this guy, done.
Yep.
It's having some humility to know that you don't know and be okay with that.
Yep.
I think is foundationally like that's like that can be the backbone of the team.
Yep. And you touched on something so important right there, John, which is, it's not just about enabling, right? It's not just about saying, what do you need?
Right.
I think, especially in situations of crisis, which, we all end up facing these things at some point, it's not just about enabling. It's also about lighting the fire
Mm.
under your people. So sometimes, it's about literally letting the dogs loose and just going, go do your thing,
Right. Right.
And I'll tell you a story. Like, back in 2014, I was part of the national security team, so counterterrorism in Ottawa, and that's when there was the Canadian equivalent of 9/11,
Okay.
where we had a terrorist attack on our parliament.
I
Uh,
I remember that.
yeah, so there was an active shooter that
Yes.
literally went into parliament. And so at the time, I was part of the kind of the core team of undercover operators that we were running agents and sources and all sorts of stuff, in the counterterrorism world. And we were really good at what we did. And when the attack occurred, you know, everybody and their dog literally was running towards the scene, right?
Sure.
And our boss had the wherewithal, the control to actually bring us back. And because we all grabbed all the guns we could, and body armor and ammo, and we were just
Yeah.
flying down towards Parliament Hill to go and engage the threat. But he pulled us back, and he just went, no, there's tactical guys that are going to go and take care of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are masters at being in the shadows, and
Yeah.
getting the sources and getting people to do
Yeah.
stuff for us.
Stay in your
And
lane, man. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
stay.
but
You got an
he just
expertise. Yeah.
kind of reset our brains and just
Right.
went, you guys are good at this. Now get in your cars
Yeah.
and go do your thing.
Yeah.
Find out what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And
Right.
because we didn't know if this was just the one guy,
A lone wolf or a
a primer
coordinated
attack?
attack. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Oh
didn't
man.
know. And
Right.
so, and it just like shocked us, and really like, oh yeah, you're right. And back in our cars we went. but then we were taking down guys like left
Sure.
and right that were potentially associated, that were, so it was this whole thing that occurred. But sometimes, and I love that you brought that up, John, is yes, sometimes as a boss, you can say, hey guys, what do you need? What do you need to accomplish your mission? How can I help?
Right.
But at other times, you need to step it up and
Right.
just literally pour gas on the fire and go, all right,
Yeah.
you guys
Go.
go do your thing.
Go. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think at the end of the day, man, as long as everybody's well intended, we'll figure it out, man. We'll get there.
Yep.
There's a lot of, I think, unfortunately, man, doom and gloom, about the crisis that we're in, um, from a leadership standpoint. Not only in law enforcement, by the way. If you look at the states, it's a shit show, when it comes to leadership of our country, right? It
Yep.
just
Hmm.
there is there's we have been operating from a playbook of the lesser of the evils since I can remember. There isn't a time where you were like, that guy has all the qualities we want, or that
Hmm.
woman has all the qualities we want of an exceptional leader. They would do an amazing job. Those words have never come out of my mouth. Um,
Yep.
and
Yeah. And it's
we're supposed to be the
same thing in
greatest
Canada.
supposed to be the
Same.
greatest nation in the world, and we can't find our ass with both hands. We've got, it's really problematic, right? It's
Yep.
problematic, and it has the potential to be very demoralizing,
Yeah.
to the point of complete disengagement.
Yes. And you're bringing up again a fantastic point, because this mentality has seeped into recruitment, into hiring, right?
Yeah.
Let's hire the less worse candidate.
Wait a minute,
Oh,
how many
there's
felonies? I want the guy with one felony, not three. I'm sorry,
exactly.
what did you just say?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he can't run,
Right,
but he was able to go up three stairs.
right.
Like
Or
what?
he writes well, but he
Yeah.
he no.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't talk to people, but he has a bachelor's degree. And I'm like,
Right,
yeah, but
right,
so and that also leads to disengagement, lack of motivation, stuff like that. Because again, you have all your go-getters and your people that
mm-hmm.
are very, very
High
uh,
performers.
yeah, high performers on your team, and they see you, the leader, hire these less desirable people, and they're like, I'm gonna have to work with these people.
Yeah.
This guy is gonna be my backup.
I would say when I went, I was a motor sergeant in charge of, we would do our interviews. A
Yep.
50-man motor unit, very prestigious. First question I would ask the people on the board: do you want this guy riding next to you? Do you want to be seen with this person in formation? Do
Yep.
your life is in their hands when you're riding this motorcycle? Are you okay with that? And their eyes get big. Well, if you got to be okay with it, because you're going to send him to go ride with somebody else.
Yep.
Oh no. Well then, all right, then they don't get in.
Mm,
That's simple. That's
yeah.
simple. Well, our
Yeah. No.
leaders aren't applying that same rule to the people that we're hiring,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And that's why, and there's a big conversation right now in our industry about, hiring,
Right.
like the lowering of standards
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. Oh well, they don't need to be fit anymore. There's no physical testing. There's no you don't need a GED anymore, or you don't like it's the removal of these barriers in response to the fact that it's harder to get people. And I think we're looking at the problem backwards. I think we need to keep standards extremely high,
Right.
because it's we don't need less quality people
Right.
on our on our teams.
No.
What we need to do is, on the other end, we need to reduce the amount of work that police officers do. So for example, they're handling
I just read an article,
16,000
man.
things.
You are singing my song, man. How about we just get back to enforcing the law?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, all these other units, man, that are not doing that.
Yeah.
You want to find bodies to cover the road tonight? How about we focus on what our primary, right? Our
Yep.
main, we've gotten so diluted
Yep.
in our job description that we've created our own problems.
Yeah, 100%. And there's also, part of this problem, I
Right.
feel, is that there's zero impact to people making frivolous accusations.
Yep. Yep.
How
Yep.
many times do police officers get called to something and it's
Right.
just like, oh, I just called because I'm mad at MasterCard. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, these people should receive a bill.
Yeah.
Like, they
Yeah.
should get billed.
Oh, I mean, you want to go down a rabbit hole of, what we need to be doing differently. You know, we now you just made me think we're no longer feared. That's a problem.
Yep.
Um, because not only see when you don't fear, then you don't fear then there are no consequences for your actions.
Yep.
Um, the reason why you don't do something isn't because it's right or wrong. People fear the consequences of getting caught. All
Yep.
right. And so when there are no consequences, and you don't, this goes over about as well as a fart in church, but I think the public should fear the police to a certain extent. If your heart should palpitate when you see one of us look at you, and then based on
Yep.
our based on our reaction, you can either calm down or not. It's backwards world.
Yep.
We are supposed to come out of the gate huggy huggy and then ramp it up should the situation call for it. And I've always proposed that let's come out of the gate ready to ready to do battle. And then if the battle isn't on that call, great. Shake a hand. Be
Yep.
kind. Be kind. Um, be empathetic. But
Yep.
um, we have too many leaders, I think, that have sold us out from our mission, and that is when the criminal element does not fear law
Yep.
enforcement, you see what you have going on right now: assaults, um, beatings, the piling on of officers in New
It's
York, just
ridiculous.
um,
Ridiculous.
shooting at officers, beating officers, juries acquitting. It's just, you know,
Yep.
um, those are the issues I think that it didn't happen overnight. I remember getting out of the car with my partner. We rode in separate cars, but we went into a crowd of 500 people, and very respectfully, we went up to a DJ. We said, "Hey, you're done. Uh, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here."
Yep.
And two guys cleared 500 people because 500 people knew that if they got out of line, they would get their ass whipped. Not by me and my buddy, but the wrath of God would descend upon that group. And
Yep.
so, all right, man, move along. And you could do that. You could get out of a car and control a mob.
Yep. Exactly. And
You
and
don't do
it's
that now.
you can't. You can't. I mean, if you don't have overwhelming numbers
No.
today, it's because it's completely reverse, right?
Yep.
You basically need 6 cops to arrest 2 guys
Yeah.
because you know, God forbid you're gonna bruise one of the
Yeah.
suspects or something,
No,
right? And it's and you know, to this I connect the issue of um
I need you to
that
tie
that
this into leadership, by the way.
yeah. No, but
Getting
you know, I'm
going off on a
tying this to
tangent on you.
I'm tying this to the fact that criminals at this time have more rights than victims,
Yeah.
right? They're more criminals have more protection in our systems than victims do,
Yeah.
which is insanity. It's completely crazy. It's completely upside down. And again, if we loop it back to leadership, I mean, you need to have leadership courage. And that's a big thing that I'm working with my own team right now.
Right.
Like the people, my frontline supervisors that are working for me right now, I'm really pushing hard on them to have leadership courage.
Right.
Like it's enough of handling people with little kids gloves. Like
Yeah.
time to take the gloves off and just you're being professional, you're being correct, but you're firm. And if you know if you need to be honest with somebody like a problematic employee,
Yeah.
you can it's time to say, hey man,
Yeah.
you suck at this, you need to get better,
Right.
right? Or your attitude is unprofessional and unacceptable, it
Right.
stops right now, instead
Right.
of tiptoeing around the issue. And
Yeah. It
leadership courage.
yeah, it is Travis Yates. He's got a whole um program on courageous leadership, and it's just again we're at a place where these are unfortunately are some foreign concepts,
Yep.
and it's time to get back to holding the line and you know doing all the things that we need to be doing uh,
Yep.
to support each other and to address issues, difficult issues that they don't go away just because you decide not to look at them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, I really think it starts with taking our young frontline leaders and making them strong leaders from the start
Sure.
so that they can grow over the next 20, 30 years to become exceptional leaders. But you
Sure.
need to start now. And that's how we're going to turn this whole thing around.
I was going to ask you to leave us with something, man, but I think that was it. I
Yeah, well,
really do.
okay. That's the quote. Yeah.
I really think that is it. I think that investing uh, in our future leaders and giving them the skill sets that maybe we didn't have or we were never formally trained on,
Yep.
that starts moving the pendulum back to where it needs to be.
100%. 100%.
Brother man, I thank you for your time today. This has been great. I could do this all morning, man. Um, if we want to get in touch with you, follow you, please share some of your social media and your
Yep.
websites. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you and bring you in to do some team training and help their organization address
Yep.
some leadership issues, how do we get in touch with you and how do we do all that?
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, John. So the best way to follow me is to just follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I post regular content on LinkedIn, like little videos, leadership stuff, to
Uh-huh.
just stuff to make you think. I try as much as I can to not publish the vanilla stuff.
Mm,
I really publish stuff that is stuff that I've learned that really has worked for me
gotcha.
as a leader on the front line. So, so follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's where you're going to see content. If ever, what we spoke about today really resonated with you and you want to have a chat with me, I offer free 30-minute sessions
Nice.
where we can connect. We can chat, and if you're interested in hiring me as a coach or as somebody that can work for your organization, you can just find me on my website, and that's at teamup So it's team-up.ca. You just go on the website and you'll have, as soon as it opens up, you'll see a big yellow button that says book a free 30-minute coaching session. Just click on there and you'll get my calendar, and you can just book a session with me, and we can literally have a 30-minute chat where we can decide, is this a good match? Can we work
Right.
together? And really get your career where you want it to be, or get your team where you want it to be.
And I'll put all that information in the show notes, so it'll be readily accessible for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Hi Nguyen, brother, man, I am so glad our paths crossed, and I'm really honored and very appreciative to have you in my network and somebody I can call a friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
My pleasure. Thank you.